We'll have a start on.
Good morning, everyone. This is Christine Dixon-Thiesing, Director of Academic Programs with SCRA. Glad to have you all joining us here today. I also have with me my colleague, Paul Dudley.
Good morning, everybody. It's Paul Dudley. I'm working with Christine on all of our programs within academic programs and this industry neXt RFA specifically. Look forward to working with all of you as we move through the process.
We'd first like to run through quickly what you need to know with regards to engagement with the webinar. We want to be certain everyone is aware that this session is recorded. We do this so that those who are not able to participate can listen to the session afterwards, and it will be posted on our website. We do also want to make you aware that you are currently muted and will remain muted until we get to the question and answer portion of the session. However, if you have questions that arise during our presentation, we do ask that you please go to the questions module. You'll see that in your GoToWebinar dashboard. You can pull that up and be able to enter your questions there. And we will be certain to go through all of the questions that are submitted through there first before opening up the floor to questions through audio. For today, we are going to provide a brief background on SCRA for those of you that are not familiar with us, as well as our offerings under the Academic Programs Division. Then we're going to shift gears and take a deeper dive into the request for applications that was issued in the Industry neXt space, while being certain that we provide time at the end for questions and answers. And if there are those on the line who are interested in potential collaborations, we'll also give you an opportunity to speak as well. Kicking off with a background on SCRA, the acronym stands for South Carolina Research Authority. It is an organization that was established by legislation in 1983 by the South Carolina Legislature. Our entire mission is to grow the innovation economy in South Carolina. We execute on that mission through 4 different operating divisions. We have an industry programs group who is focused on connecting with our industrial base to learn what their needs are and make connections for them within South Carolina. They also have an outward-looking mission where they're looking to attract R&D jobs into the state as well. We also have an entrepreneurial programs group. Some of you may be familiar with them. This group is also has an affiliate called SC Launch. And the Entrepreneurial Programs Group is there to foster fledgling entrepreneurs and also provide grants and ultimately investments through SC Launch to help stand up South Carolina-based technology enterprises. Then Paul and I here on the phone are with academic programs, and our mission is to work with academia to connect them to industry, to have an impact on the direction of research and increase the commercial viability of research that's going on within South Carolina's academic institutions. We also have a 4th group, our Facilities Division, that runs buildings in Anderson, Columbia, Somerville, and Charleston. 3 of those 4 facilities are geared towards research. So looking at how we can bring together academic research together with entrepreneurs. For example, in the Charleston office where Paul and I sit, we have wet labs that are custom tailored to the needs of life science companies. To be clear, also, we are technology focused, and so with that, we have 3 rather large industry verticals where we operate. The first in life sciences, then also information technology, and ultimately advanced manufacturing and materials. Before we take a deeper dive into the RFA, I'd like to first provide you some more information about other funding opportunities that we have available through academic programs in case they're relevant for you. We do ask you to follow up with us following the information session if you would like to learn more about any of these, or visit our website at scra.org. The first of these, the SBIR STTR matching grants. These are grants that match federal Phase 1 SBIR STTR awards to South Carolina-based companies. This is the one grant within the purview of academic programs that is not required to be tied to an academic institution. So any company who has been awarded a federal Phase 1 can indeed move forward with requesting these matching grants that are beneficial to helping the company in achieving Phase 2 funding. The next grant is the Academic Startup Assistance Program grant. This is seed funding that is there to help move the most nascent companies forward towards commercially relevant milestones. These are $25,000 awards, and it is required that the company is advancing university or college or tech system-based intellectual property based in South Carolina. The next grant, the Maturation Grants, is a relatively new program. This is a means to augment the support that's being provided to academic institutions that are investing in technology development. So, for example, an institution may be moving forward with a specific test that needs to be done for a product that's in development. And with that, these matching funds for the Maturation Grants go towards matching the dollars that are being invested by the institutions. The next grant that you see up here, the SACT grants, is really the focus of what we're here to talk about today. With that, these are awards of up to $100,000, and I will be speaking in much greater detail on how we arrived at the decision to fund awards in Industry Next as we go throughout the discussion. But to be clear, this funding is only available to academic institutions. So you must be affiliated with a public institution in South Carolina, be it a technical college, a primarily undergraduate institution, or a research university in order to be eligible. However, we are looking to address industry needs through the course of the research that's conducted under the SACT grants. And so as you'll hear throughout the program, we are focused on industry engagement. Then the last grant, which is currently being piloted, is prototyping grants. And so this is dollars to help fund prototyping efforts at the technical college systems in South Carolina. We have some phenomenal capabilities and infrastructure within our technical college system. We would like to highlight that and enable greater use of those facilities by other academic researchers within the state. So to provide you some context with the RFA and what the objectives are so that when you're submitting an application, you can know the perspective from which it's being reviewed. SCRA, several years ago, went back to its key stakeholders to evaluate the needs of our stakeholders and determine how we as an organization can provide services that will fulfill those needs. And with our academic stakeholder groups, there was a task force created that for about a year analyzed the needs of the academic institutions and came up with a list of requested items and services for SCRA to provide. This ultimately culminated in the signing of a collaboration agreement between SCRA and the key academic stakeholders. And under that agreement, the stakeholders had requested that SCRA provide additional support for startups in the community, more particularly, of course, with a focus on academic startups. And so those efforts are being addressed collectively between academic programs and our entrepreneurial programs group. The academic institutions also asked that we invest in research infrastructure across the state. And so as you'll see in the RFA, there is an ability to request equipment if there is a need for equipment to advance research in this space. And then finally, we're looking to building out multi-institutional, multidisciplinary collaborations so that we can pursue federal funding, private funding, and state funding collectively to increase our chances of receiving awards in different research fields. With that and the formation and the signing of the collaboration agreement, the SCRA Executive Committee determined that a committee needed to be formed to best serve the needs of the collaboration agreement. And with that, the SACT was formed. This is the only acronym I will ask you all to remember today. The SACT stands for SCRA Academia Collaboration Team. And so just for your knowledge, this is the team that will be ultimately evaluating the applications under the RFA for compliance with the strategic criteria and ultimately scoring them in light of the strategic criteria. The SACT was formed to design and implement programs that will achieve the objectives of the collaboration agreement. With that, as I mentioned previously, there are 3 different industry verticals in which SCRA operates. Originally, there was a thought to have capabilities focused in each of those 3 areas, being advanced manufacturing, IT, and the life sciences. As we moved forward through the evaluation process, though, of how we could have the greatest impact, it was identified that information technology is ubiquitous. It touches everything. And so instead of having a research alliance focused on information technology, we instead determined that we were going to be certain that it is the component of the other areas in which we're operating. And so with that, you'll see with our RFA, obviously, in the advanced manufacturing space, it is almost exclusively focused on information technology solutions. With that, then, we went through a rather rigorous process of determining the capabilities and expertise across the state and across all types of academic institutions, looking at the technical colleges, the PUIs, and the research universities to identify areas of research and capabilities where there was connectivity across multiple institutions. And with that, we identified 9 different fields where we could potentially build out research alliances that would leverage what we have across the state. In that, those 9 different fields were ultimately prioritized, and the SACT determined to move forward in the top 3 fields. And so with that, 2 other fields that we're not going to be discussing today, we do have a research alliance effort in the field of technology-enabled solutions for population health. So again, that is IT solutions to have a scalable impact on health outcomes in South Carolina. And then we also have the South Carolina Medical Device Alliance, which recently received an Economic Development Administration I-6 award, which is in total a $1.8 million project over the next 3 years for accelerating medical devices that are coming out of academia and forming viable startups as a result. The third is, of course, the field of focus for this conversation, and I've just noted that I didn't give it its new branding. So we were certain that we wanted to move forward in the advanced manufacturing space, and originally we had been characterizing this research alliance as Industry 4.0. But as we went through the feasibility assessment process, it became very clear that South Carolina's expertise in modernization and connectivity of manufacturing operations is much more broad than Industry 4.0 and the Industrial Internet of Things. We also wanted to be certain that we were covering smart manufacturing as well as the digital thread. And so with that, we did transform our initiative from Industry 4.0 to focusing on Industry neXt. And we will discuss in greater detail how we're defining Industry neXt as we move forward. So with that, as the SACT was evaluating how to have an impact with the funds that we have for these efforts, it was determined that building out research alliances was going to be the most effective way to do that. And so with that, we were looking for some key elements, as you see there on the left column, that are critical to the foundation of building out a research alliance. We wanted to be certain that we had the expertise as well as the research infrastructure and industry partners within the state for each of these research fields in order to make them viable long term. We also wanted our research alliances to be certain they're addressing industry needs because our purpose here in academic programs, while we are focused on academia, is to maximize the economic impact of the research that's going on within the state. And the best way to do that is to get industry involved earlier in the process and have there be a pull for the research that's going on instead of a push. We were also looking to ensure that we are leveraging resources across multiple institutions and building relationships between multiple institutions. So as you've read the RFA, you can see there's a requirement for collaboration with other academic institutions as part of that. We have to be very strategic with our funds under the SACT. We want to be certain that we are not creating something that's only going to benefit 1 or 2 institutions in the state. We also, because of this, we have about $300,000 per year for each research alliance. As you can imagine, that's not enough money to stand up a bricks and mortar facility. So I want to be clear, these are alliances that do not have bricks and mortar associated with them, or at least currently do not have plans to. But with that, we instead need to leverage the funds we have to attract additional dollars. And we need a clear path to how we're going to attract those dollars as well. So with that, the EDA grant is an exemplar of how we can leverage the funds that we have to attract additional dollars to execute on our mission. And then finally, as we are an economic development organization. We are looking to create jobs and workforce development and hopefully some startup companies along the way as well. With this, I'm going to shift gears into taking a deeper dive into Industry Next and how we're defining this. As I mentioned earlier, we know that Industry 4.0 is fairly narrow in definition. We also are aware that there are some people out there talking about Industry 5.0 or Industry X.0. And so we didn't want to be tethered to Industry 4.0. And with that, it's still really that common thread that you see under Industry 4.0. It's how can we use information technology systems and methods to enhance our manufacturing processes and stay ahead of the curve in South Carolina with our capabilities. And so with that, we did identify multiple sub-programs that fall under this definition of Industry Next. These sub-programs were identified through taking an inventory of the capabilities across the state. Some of you on the call today contributed to those inventories. We greatly appreciate your input. But with that, as you can see, robotics and industrial Internet of Things and additive manufacturing are high on the list. I should mention these sub-programs are indeed prioritized by our academic stakeholders. So you can see robotics is the top priority for strategic interest and the future direction of the academic institutions that participated in the survey. Looking through this, though, I'll just briefly touch on some of the other sub-programs. These are fairly common terms of art, but I did want to clarify a few of them. So human-machine interface is a common and understood term, but then when we went through our feasibility assessment, we did also want to be certain that it expanded beyond what you typically think of as a human-robot interaction, but instead looking at how you can use information technology systems also for novel training modalities as well as pedagogical approaches. So with that, how can you implement VR and AR into the manufacturing environment for training as well as for education purposes? And then also identifying how important logistics and supply chain management is within South Carolina and the depth of expertise we have. We wanted to be certain that was captured here. But I want to be abundantly clear when we're talking about supply chain management, we're still talking about the technical side. There needs to be a technology that's being deployed in any proposal that's focused on supply chain management. And then, of course, there's the computing side involved here as well, and cloud computing and cybersecurity. So with this, all of these sub-programs are fair game for applications to be submitted under the RFA. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Dudley to take a deeper dive into the particulars of the RFA.
Thanks, Christine, and good morning again, everybody. I'm going to take the next few slides to dive deeper into the programmatic aspects of the RFA to provide you with as much guidance as possible as to your eligibility and our own internal processes that we use to assess your applications. The first thing I'd like to do on this slide is just draw your attention to the very opening, which is that this is a feasibility RFA, and emphasize that we're trying to determine the feasibility of this research alliance with the ultimate goal of potentially self-sustainability. And as Christine mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are financially limited. So ultimately, we do want these research alliances to be able to survive without the continual infusion of SCRA funds. We understand that that's potentially down the road, but ultimately, we do want to give you a sense of what it is that we're trying to drive. And that initially, we'd like to fund development and deployment of technologies to address industry-validated needs. As Christine mentioned, we are looking for that pull from industry as opposed to a push from either us or from academia. She did a great job of introducing you to all the different sub-programs in which you can explore or potentially utilize your research or work in those fields to become eligible to submit under this RFA. And as the RFA described, we are going to be awarding up to 3 awards for a total of $100,000 each, for really I should have said a total of $300,000 to any public-private collaborators. To remind you again of the sense of the timing of this, we released the RFA on February 1st. We do understand that we did compress the time for the information session slightly, but we did want to give you as much time as possible to build your collaborations and find partners within industry. Overall, the funding decisions will be made on May 9th when, as Christine mentioned, the SACT will reconvene and assess the overall merit of all of the applications that we've received. To give you a sense of who's eligible, and we do, this verbiage is pulled directly from the RFA, but overall our intent is to advance commercially relevant research or acquire equipment that can be used by multiple constituent institutions and made available across the state to all other entities that could potentially leverage the equipment purchased. But as a reminder, applications must come from a constituent institution, and that is defined here on the screen as well as in the RFA.
Let me pause here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing your questions, everyone. Thank you very much for making us aware that you are still only seeing the opening screen.
Oh, no.
That is not what we are seeing on our end. So if you'll give us just a moment here, we will get this resolved. There you all go. I'm sorry you missed it was the best slide deck ever. I have to say, you just missed it. Oh, dear me. So I apologize for that. Thank you very much for making us aware of that. And I apologize we didn't see that question earlier. We will also be certain to get you all the full slide deck. It will be posted on the website, but we'll also get it to you following the presentation. Sorry for the interruption.
No, not at all. That's a critical input. So these are the eligibility criteria as I was beginning to describe. Hope everyone can see them now. We are looking for, as I mentioned, to build collaboration amongst researchers and academia within the state as well as industry. We really are hoping for collaborations with industry, as that will ultimately strengthen the research alliance in the long run. When you consider the two constituent institutions, do also please recall that you yourself do constitute one of the constituent institutions, so you really only need to find one other potential partner. Of course, the more partners you're able to find, the stronger your application will be. We do also mention that previous recipients of SACT feasibility grant funding are not eligible to submit under this solicitation, as the period of performance for their previous award is still ongoing. So if you fall into that category, you would know, but otherwise you are free to apply for this application. I wanted to give you a sense of the overall review criteria that we'll be using to assess your applications. And I want to point out that we'd assess them both within using technical criteria and strategic criteria. As Christine mentioned earlier, the strategic criteria are reviewed by the members of the SACT themselves, but in an effort to maintain as much objectivity as possible and as transparency as possible, SCRA utilizes external technical reviewers who are experts in the field of advanced manufacturing to assess your applications from a technical perspective. We use the criteria established by the National Science Foundation, and we've actually added a category of follow-on funding, because as we've both mentioned, we're very interested in the overall sustainability of this research alliance, and the ability to attract follow-on funding will be critical in measuring that potential. So we will ask our external technical reviewers to review your applications on these criteria here. And then once they're done, we compile their feedback and their scores, and we provide them to all the members of the SACT, who will review the applications from a strategic criteria, which are also laid out in the RFA and on the screen here in the right-hand side column. And utilizing those criteria, the SACT members make the ultimate decision on the funding of the applications. In establishing the strategic criteria and in discussions with both the feasibility team and the SACT, we decided to add some criteria to the process for the strategic criteria, and those are highlighted in green on your screen. In an ongoing effort to, again, increase the potential for collaboration between academia and industry, we've added the category there at third bullet down. And at the bottom of the categories, you'll see that we've asked that you involve South Carolina-based industry partners. That was driven by the fact that some researchers and collaborators were utilizing companies based outside South Carolina, which we failed to anticipate in our earlier releases. So we've added the caveat of a South Carolina-based industry partner. And We are also looking for you to involve small to medium-sized enterprises, which we define in the RFA as having fewer than 500 employees. The intent is not to further enrich the large companies that we do have several of in the state, but for you to work with smaller companies that would probably be more suited and benefit more from the funding infusion that SCRA and this research could provide. This gives you a sense of the timetable in which we're dealing with in the RFA. As I mentioned, the release was on February 1st. We are now at the second phase of the information session. Your applications are due at the end of March on the 29th, as opposed to what we showed earlier, which you didn't actually see. And then we'll conduct a pre-review internally amongst ourselves at SCRA to ensure compliance with the RFA from the point of that they are all strategically aligned with what we're trying to convey, and that they meet the other criteria laid out in the RFA as far as formatting goes, number of collaborators, that you are indeed eligible to continue with the process. And then once we have consolidated that list, we provide them to our external technical reviewers for a 3-week period in which they have to review your applications and provide us with a score. We then provide that to the SACT on the 30th of April and convene the study section on the 9th of May with the SACT. During that meeting, the funding decisions will be made. Just like other study sections, we assign a lead reviewer and a secondary reviewer amongst the SACT members. The lead reviewer will conduct a discussion of the application and answer any questions that the other SACT members may have about an application. The secondary reviewer also provides any additional input or a second opinion about the application itself, and is beneficial for the overall discussion that each of the SACT members have when going through each of the applications. And then once the funding decisions are made, we'll begin executing the development of the contracts themselves between SCRA and the recipients. And we have those finalized before the end of our fiscal year at the end of June. Here's some further additional information to help you understand the actual submission process itself. The RFA does point you towards Appendix B, where all of the cover page, budget, and current pending support documents are located. Those are fillable PDFs, and we ask you to fill all those out and then combine them into one PDF and email them to the address on the 5th bullet, academic programs at SCRA. I'd like to point out that the cover page must be signed by the authorized organizational representative at your institution. So what we're trying to avoid there is having the researcher or the PI sign that section. Please have the proper individual at your institution so that we're aware that your institution is tracking and acknowledging your application to SCRA as well. As a reminder, they're due March 29th at 5 p.m. That is a hard deadline, so please do ensure that your application is submitted by then. And as everything else falls along with the schedule, the SACT will make their decision in May, and we'll have that contract to you by the end of June. Formatting, we've laid out all the instructions regarding formatting in the RFA. Please do follow those. Those are very important to ensure uniformity and fairness to all the applications. Finally, this is a slide that you can utilize to gather and gain further information about the RFA. First, we direct you to the landing page within SCRA where all of this information is consolidated and kept. It includes the RFA, all the forms. We will have frequently asked questions as a result of this information session discussion today, as well as a video of this recording, all posted at this site at the top, which you can utilize throughout the rest of the application period to reference for your application's purposes. Christine mentioned also about our emphasis on matchmaking and working with industry. We are also providing the website for the South Carolina EPSCoR IDEA site that we use within SCRA to give you a sense of expertise within the state that you could potentially tap for finding potential collaborators. So we do encourage you to visit that website and utilize the information provided there for your matchmaking purposes.
We do also encourage you all to provide your own information and submit your research profile as well, so that those even through EPSCoR or other RFAs could reach out to you and build future collaborations also.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at that email address, paul.dudley@scra.org, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and get back to you in a timely manner. I do understand that you are crunched for time. You're also very busy in and out of the classroom and in the lab. So I am respectful of your time, and I will get your answers back to you as quickly as possible, usually no more than within a day or two. At this point, we would really like to open up the discussion now and unmute your microphones and allow you to enter into a question and answer session with us to give you the opportunity to have any pressing questions answered now, and also give others on the line the chance to hear what you have to say and gain from your questions and our answers as well to that. So if at this point, if anybody has any questions, your microphones are now unmuted and you are free to ask anything you may want to know about the RFA. We're not hearing anybody, so if anybody's transmitting, we're not catching it.
I guess they may have muted themselves.
Okay. If you'd rather type your question, that's fine too. We can accept it in a typed format.
If you'll give us a moment. We're having difficulty unmuting you all. I see that some of you may have questions, so give us just a moment here. I apologize.
Yeah, hi, this is Stan Greenewalt from Maury Georgetown Technical College. I hear you're fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. I just wanted to let you know the system's working. And two, I just have a question as far as industry, as far as working with the machinery, and what I'm interested in is setting up a cybersecurity program which involves machinery, and then also then how to protect that machinery. That includes Internet of Things. And so what I'll do is I think I have some companies that might be interested in that, and I'll also try to collaborate with another technical college, but I want to make sure that's within the scope of what you're interested in.
Could you elaborate on what you mean by a program on that front?
Yeah, I want to set up a program where we are building and testing equipment, and then also then try to test it through cybersecurity to see that it's safe. For instance, with Navy ships or with any type of industry that has equipment that uses some type of Internet of Things, and so that we have a way to either evaluate that they're safe or unsafe, and then develop programs to make them more safe, and then develop a curriculum of development that trains students, which would then learn how to do that so they could be then available to be hired within industry.
Excellent. So to that point, actually testing the equipment and identifying solutions to the problems that you encounter would definitely fall under the scope of the RFA. I would caution you against curriculum development and including that in your application. That certainly would be a wonderful supplement to what you're proposing and a key part of the program. I understand that. But we're really focused on solving industry problems. So as you mentioned, working with your industry partners to identify what their issues are and develop solutions to them is a perfect fit.
Okay, understand. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions? We'd also like to open up the floor. If any of you are looking for collaborators, or Stan, for example, working with additional technical colleges on this front, to give you all an opportunity to also speak about your capabilities and the type of partner that you're seeking. Would anyone like to speak to that point?
Yeah, hi, this is Stan Greenwald again. You mind if I offer one more thing?
No, please, go ahead.
Okay, we have another grant where we have received, which we're building a cyber range here at the campus, and which involves us taking known viruses and injecting them in the virtual environment for companies to come in and test their systems, so we can also train their people on their particular systems. And so I'm interested in looking for another technical college or college that would be interested in partnering with that. I want to be able to share this in the virtual so it can open it up to other students. So I am interested if there's someone else out there interested and would like to collaborate with me on that, so we can then help industry in their cybersecurity world.
Dan, I would recommend you also please visit the EPSCoR site, since there will be people that will be listening to the presentation at a later date.
Okay.
And so by means of this, we'll be able to refer people there to find out more about you and your contact information as well, so that you could potentially identify collaborators through that mechanism.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your help.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to check one more time to see if there's any more written questions. Someone has requested if we will share the list. We do have some more questions here. Someone has a Brett Shields. Brett, let me look and see how you're connected. If you're connected by your computer, you may need to call in through the line. Otherwise, would you please type in your question into the question field and we'll answer it through that means instead. And then another participant has requested if we will be sharing the list of the participants in the webinar. Typically, we do not do that because we don't want to share other people's information without their approval to do so. So with that, I recommend, again, going to that EPSCoR expertise profile and entering your information there so that you can find collaborators through that means. And we also have a question, how does the South Carolina-based industry partner defined? So with that, we're looking for someone who has a presence in South Carolina. It can still, as Paul mentioned, we have a focus on the small to medium-sized enterprises. That does not exclude OEMs and large companies from being the industry partner. It's just that, as you may see in the review criteria in the RFA, there are additional points given for working with an SME. And so we do require that they have a presence in South Carolina. We're here to benefit the economy of South Carolina, not of another state. So if that did not fully address your question, please do elaborate, and I'd be happy to address it in deeper detail. Someone is looking at the budget justification, and it states we need to include publication costs, yet under restrictions it states the publication fees are not allowed as a use of funds. That is correct. If you were actually in the live form, you would see you're not able to enter an amount in publication costs. That is indeed prohibited under the scope of the RFA. So with that, of course, this is not the only opportunity to engage with us and ask us questions. We do welcome you all to contact us as well as you work through your application, because we are here to help. And as Paul has given you his email address for that purpose, by all means, we would like to try and assist you and address any questions you may have as you go along. So with that, I don't see any additional questions in the typed in question field. So with that, I am going to bring this to an end, but I wanted to thank you all very much for your participation today. And again, we will get you the entire slide deck so that you can see the materials. I apologize for the technical gaffe there, and we appreciate your engagement. So thank you all very much.